I'm very happy to have your presence here tonight in this event, paying homage to Renata Tebaldi, the legendary Italian soprano, celebrating the 100th anniversary of her birth. First of all, let me acknowledge and give my biggest appreciation to our guests, Madame Caterina Leimena, Anning Katamsi, Farel Silavan, and Aditya Setiadi. Thank you so much. We will start the event with a discussion about the life of Renata Tebaldi, and it will be followed by a mini recital. The discussion, Renata Tebaldi, the voice of an angel, will be presented by Aditya Setiadi. Aditya Setiadi is a man of many parts. He devotes most of his time as a musicologist, cultural historian, lecturer, researcher, and the director of the two Indonesian Performing Arts Foundations. After completing his Bachelor of Science from the University of Indonesia, as well as the piano education, under the guidance of the pianist Irawati Sudiarso at the IEPM Music School, he continued his studies in musicology at the King's College London. Recently, he involves in the formulation of several public policies regarding music, liberal art education, and mindfulness, both with the Indonesian government and the G20 summit. Thank you and enjoy the evening. Please, Aditya.
Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to Istituto Italiano di Cultura in Jakarta. Tonight, we would like to celebrate the 100 years anniversary of the birth of Renata Tebaldi. But first thing first, I would like to express our gratitude to the Embassy of Italy, to Istituto Italiano di Cultura, to Fondazione Tebaldi, and particularly to Signora Maria Battaglia, the director of the Istituto Italiano di Cultura. And actually, tonight's presentation, tonight's discussion is not going to be held only by me, but also by my colleague, the great musicians here. The first one is Farel Silaban. Farel is a tenor. He studied at the Royal College of Music and the Rochester Conservatory in New York. And he also involved in several summer courses on Italian opera back in Urbania, right? In Urbania and in London. Yeah, okay. And then the next artist is Ibu Aning Katamsi, a well-known Indonesian soprano. Her mother was also one of the legendary sopranos, Indonesian legendary sopranos, the grand dame of the Indonesian bel canto. And the last but not least is Madame Caterina Leimena. She studied at the Giuseppe Verdi Conservatory in Milan in the 1960s, and upon returning to Indonesia, she established the Susvara Opera Company. This group specializes in performing Italian operas, ranging from the bel canto repertoires to the Verismo. Okay, let's give an applause to all of them. Okay, maybe I can explain while sitting. Okay, tonight's presentation will be started by short clip by Renata Tebaldi, and maybe we can start.
E
Okay.
questa è la sala delle audizioni?
Sì, esattamente questa, però un pochettino cambiata. In quanto che allora era chiamata la Sala Rossa, appunto perché era tutta tappezzata di damasco.
Il tavolo era così come adesso?
Sì, il tavolo è esattamente come adesso. Qui capotavola sedeva il maestro e il dottor Gheringhelli e il figlio del maestro Walter. A un certo momento il maestro mi chiese con chi avevo studiato e allora io risposi che avevo fatto i primi anni di conservatorio a Parma con il maestro Campo Gagliani e poi avevo terminato gli studi con la signora Carmen Melis. Naturalmente mi sentivo la fiffa da morire, cercavo di darmi un contegno per essere più calma possibile mentre invece non l'avevo affatto.
Che cosa ha cantato? Ha cantato qualche altra cosa?
Sì, il maestro mi chiese quale altro pezzo avrei avuto pronto e allora io risposi che avendo cantato l'Otello ultimamente a Trieste avevo pronto l'opera Otello.
1962, and the interviewer asked Tebaldi um, uh, what was your most beautiful day? Quale più giorno la sua vita? And she answered that it was during my first audition with Maestro Toscanini for the reopening of the La Scala Opera House in 1946 after the bombing of La Scala during the World War II. And then she visited the same room where she had an audition at the La Scala Theater, the Sala Rossa, the red auditorium, and she remembers really well that Maestro Toscanini sat at the head of the table, and then there was Ettore Campogalliani, a well-known vocal teacher, and also Walter Toscanini. And maybe we can get to the next slide. Okay, this is very interesting. There are three men who were really instrumental in the early years of Tebaldi before she was renowned abroad. The first one is, of course, the conductor, Arturo Toscanini, a legendary Italian conductor. And then the second one is Antonio Ghiringhelli. Ghiringhelli is the sovrintendente of La Scala, the director of La Scala. And then the last one is Ettore Campogalliani, one of Renata Tebaldi's voice teacher. And maybe Madame Caterina would like to explore more about the Ghiringhelli and Campogalliani, because at those times you've met with Antonio Ghiringhelli yourself, and also Campogalliani was one of the lecturers at the Giuseppe Verdi Conservatorio in Milan. Yeah.
Hello. I was fortunate brought by when I arrived in Milano. I was with the Council of Indonesia in Genoa is Dr. Pitoy. He brought me to Antonio Ghiringhelli just to introduce, and Ghiringhelli sent me to Maestro Tonini to have a vocal coach before I entered the Conservatorium Verdi. And then with Campogalliani, I met several times in Conservatorium. He was one of our adjudicator in the exams, my admission test, and then also he managed the um, biblioteca di Conservatorium Verdi, where there is also gamelan in the conservatorium, all the Indonesian gamelan, and he always asked me about the name of the in the exam. Yeah, in the exam I was test whether I know the name of the instrument gamelan. Okay, that's my and also before I returned to Indonesia, uh, I heard Campo Galliani test um, Pavarotti before he entered the La Scala.
Oh,
That's my experience.
that's really interesting because at the time Antonio Giringhelli was the most powerful man in La Scala, and he was the one who hired Tebaldi and Callas, and also the one who fired Callas and Tebaldi. Very powerful, but at the time, Madame Caterina was introduced to him by the consul, the Italian consul in Genova, and then Gringhelli actually gave you a recommendation letter to enter
Yeah,
to the
to Antonio
conservatory.
Foto. To Antonio Foto.
Antonino Foto.
Yeah.
Antonino Foto is the also one of the greatest Italian conductors, and he worked mainly with also he made several recordings with Callas and also with Tebaldi. So you were surrounded by so many legendary people at the time.
And I was fortunately the conservatorium was invited by the Paolo VI, the Pope, and
Oh.
I've sang the Monteverdi with Riccardo Muti.
Oh,
Riccardo Muti was still student conductor in Verdi Conservatorium. That's what my experience.
that's really interesting because I think you can share with us so many spirits and zeitgeist during those times when maybe because Tebaldi's active years uh, were mainly between the 1940s to 1970s, and many of us maybe were not familiar with her arts anymore. Maybe you can share with
Uh,
us.
I think that time I was still in the elementary school. I heard the long play of the Tebaldi, so I know already heard this soprano, and that makes me I want to study vocal because of her, you know.
Oh, so you listen to a long playing is Piringan Hitam. Long playing of Renata Tebaldi.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Actually, I wonder if any of you is familiar with Renata Tebaldi. When was your first time listening to Renata Tebaldi, Madam Aning?
When I'm studied with Bukan Trina. I've studied with her, and yeah, she introduced me to a lot of yeah, recording, and yeah, with Arya you should listen this and then like that.
And how about you, Mr. Farrell? How?
Actually, I've been familiar with the rivals of Renata Tebaldi
Oh, you
previously.
were more familiar with Maria Callas first.
But since this is the day for Renata Tebaldi,
Yeah.
I think Renata Tebaldi is very famous. Was very famous in the Northeast America since she's very s- she's the prima donna of Metropolitan Opera.
Yeah, she was the La Regina
La
del
Regina.
Mette.
So in the school or in the class, let's say like historical, when we discuss about the Romantic period, uh, most of the time the example of like for instance sopranos would be one of them, Renata Tebaldi.
I see.
And it's very, very amazing to see, and to see because she can execute with simplicity, however,
Effortless.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
very interesting.
She was well known for her impeccable legato and also the quality of her timbre, the color, voice color. And how about you? Is there any of you maybe familiar with Renata Tebaldi? Maybe you can lift your hand or ever listen to any of Renata Tebaldi recordings? Who I believe some of you have listened to Renata Tebaldi, or maybe Maria Callas. You are more familiar with Maria Callas. Yeah. Renata Tebaldi is very special because during that time, the world of the opera was synonymous with Maria Callas for soprano, and no one else. But Renata Tebaldi was the only soprano who could match to her artistry. So that's why um, she has a really important position in the history of operatic, especially in the 20th century operatic tradition. Maybe we can go next to the next slide. Okay, here we are going to watch the documentary from 19, 1983. It's about yeah, yeah. It's about Renata Tebaldi expressing her thoughts when she was already retired. It was in 1983, and Renata Tebaldi retired from the operatic stage and from the stage in general in 1976. Okay, maybe we can start.
And you every day have to feel that this personage become a part of yourself. It's just like a mama when she prepared, a baby.
Joseph Wishy presents I Live for Art, Tosca. In my 40 years on stage, one of the most sumptuous voices I've ever heard was Renata Tebaldi's.
Renata Tebaldi. She was a beautiful Tosca, what a voice. She was our leader, she was our Traviata, our Manon Lescaut, she was all the roles. And she was the most perfect human voice we ever heard.
Toscanini said you had the voice of an angel.
He also liked attractive women, too.
Yes.
So it wasn't only your musical ability and your gorgeous voice. I think he liked you as a very...
Probably.
The singing of Tosca is so passionate,
Yes.
so demanding. How do you control your voice so not to affect and tire your voice?
And you are sure about your technica, you can sing whatever you want, you see. And even when you are in the stage, you must relax sometime. You must feel something in your inside of you. And this is, I think, is beautiful.
You have to.
And the people immediately know if you are sincere or not. If you do something like this because you want to do like this, but you don't feel inside. If you cry because you cry, that you feel inside to cry, the people immediately catch this and understand.
You had no hesitation about singing a demanding role like Tosca, yet your sense of humility seems to have prevented you from singing the role of Norma.
The Maestro Serafin asked me many, many times, why you don't sing Norma? Why you don't sing Norma? Keep 6 months just for you. And I coach Norma every day. And I say, no, Maestro, I think that I'm not ready to sing Norma. For this sense of humility that was almost the time in me. And now the humility seems to me that doesn't have any significato anymore. And I'm very simple woman. Just I want to have everything it's necessary to have. No much, no more.
Do you like being a prima donna or being called a prima donna?
It's not necessary that somebody say to you that you are a prima donna because you are born prima donna. I don't know if it's true or not.
Apart from opera, your mother was your entire life. Her death must have been a shattering experience for you.
She started to be not good in Chicago in 1957. And after Chicago, we go to New York. And she was really most worst. And I called Mr. Bing and I said to him, excuse me, but I think it's impossible for me to sing the performance that I have to sing at the Metropolitan because my mother doesn't feel well. Friday night, Mama began to be very, very sick. And at 5 o'clock in the morning, she died. And it was really something terrible that happened to me. And I never forget the Cardinal Spellman, that take care of everything. The church was full of people. Something incredible. There is somebody that take a movie, but no, I don't want to see because it's really something that's too much. But in the same time, I cannot forget this. American people, what they do, the demonstration, because everybody knows Mama Giuseppina, they call Mama. No, Tebaldi mother, but Mama Giuseppina for everyone.
So she was your inspiration the day you were born, probably.
Yes. Here, I stopped everything, just if my life was finished too. But, you know, my career was fantastic. But now I'm very happy because I have the possibility to do in my life what before was impossible to do. You know, just a little thing.
Yes.
But, you know, when you stand up in the morning, you immediately...
Really interesting. So I learned two things there. If you got your technique, you can achieve whatever you want. The second one is, if you're born prima donna, you are prima donna. Doesn't matter if people call you prima donna or not, but if you're born prima donna, you are a prima donna. What do you think of it? So there's a musicologist here, Alan Blythe. Security, broad phrasing, exciting tone were of the essence in her art. She was undoubtedly a grand dame of the lyric theater, in a way now inexorably of the past. So much the worse for the present. So this statement signifies, I think, the decline in the operatic singing. I mean, in the operatic world nowadays. What do you think? Maybe you can explain. Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is kind of like the fact, because some of the musicologists already talk about it in a thesis level. I think since the 90s, there is a diminishing of singers that able to move forward to very smooth singing, or what we call it, the heavyweight level of operatic singing, because I think in the era of Renata Tebaldi and others, and there in a tenor section there were Franco Corelli.
Oh yeah, during those times there
and
were Franco Corelli in the 1950s and 60s, right?
Yes. Actually, without throwing names, those guys can sing high tessitura or high registers with such di forza or with such strength. And since then, many of young singers want to do that instantly. So since the 80s, 90s, and early 2000, they're just sacrificing the basic training need, where they need to make their instrument as flawless as the piano, where it can be used very, very effortlessly and just like a piano. But however, in the very early age of them, and they really want to be Franco Corelli, they really want to be Luciano Pavarotti, they really want to be Renata Tebaldi in like 5 years.
However, such a short time.
Yes.
Yeah.
However, Renata Tebaldi took like so many years to be able to sing the Verismo roles. So that's kind of like the idea where what happened right now with those issues.
Yeah, I think I remember once Maria Callas used to say, "There's no shortcuts in art." Yeah, so maybe so many singers want to take those shortcuts in order to achieve maybe fame or, yeah, well, maybe it can be like that, and it depends on them. But maybe it can ruin one's voice. What do you think?
Yes, the vocal fold is just as tiny as rubber, so it's vibrates and have oscillations, and it's just easy to ruin, especially when you want to sing a repertoire like this. But however, regarding on those, I think we need to hear the 3 Bs that
Oh yeah, Madam Caterina
ever
used.
taught.
What is the 3 Bs? 3 Bs, tiga B, 3 Bs of the opera singers. What is it?
Bravo, buono e bella.
So one should be brava, buona e bella, or bravo, buono e bello. Yeah. So those threes. What is it in English? Bravo has to be good, and then buona, the attitude must be must bear a good attitude as well, and then bello, and must be beautiful or handsome. Okay, it's very interesting. Maybe we can go to the next. Okay, now we are going to watch the short clip, a documentary of Renata Tebaldi giving a master class at the Salzburg Summer Academy in the 1980s.
Donna mia sfera, dai, come on! Non fa mio... we are afraid. What for? Something doesn't work in your mama today? Huh? Are you tired? The last phrase of the recitativo, please. This is day. This diet doesn't work this morning, yes? You? Huh?
È una cosa tremenda, io non so perché nessuno dei grandi musicisti abbia ancora pensato al danno che stanno facendo continuando ad andare avanti di questo passo. A un certo momento non ci saranno più cantanti, oppure saranno tutti cantanti con quelle vicine piccole, 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 tipo Moscerino, che faranno poi tutto, faranno Norma, faranno Aida, faranno il Barbiere di Siviglia, la Bohème, ma sempre con queste vocine piccoline che non avranno personalità e naturalmente non sentiranno più diciamo le composizioni come il compositore le ha create, come le ha volute, assolutamente.
So she said that nowadays it's quite difficult to find great musicians because many of the singers they only have a very tiny voice, just like mosquitoes. Am I right? The for the translation. Okay. Okay. Yeah, for singers. Yeah, for singers. Yeah. So, well, to the next slide. So, yeah. So, what do you think of her statement? Because, yeah, it's very hard to find now to shape maybe a great musician, one to be a great musician, because maybe the voice is too small, or maybe the physicality has something to do with the production of the voice. What do you think? Because I listen to some of the Asian singers. They have a different, I don't know, maybe different vocal production compared to the, for example, the Wagnerian soprano from Norway or from Sweden. I mean, does physicality really affect one's voice? What do you think?
Acoustically, yes, because the sound that we produce by our resonator would be uh, resonated by how well you're coordinating the space, uh, the roof of the mouth, how you can arrange the tongue, not or allow or enabling the sounds just move forward and so on. So yeah, physicality does count, and maybe we should ask Madam Katarina because she were she was there in those time, and maybe she can tell us
Yeah, maybe you can
how's the
explain.
singers in the past
Yeah.
sounds like.
I think the important is uh, my teachers that we have to choose the songs is to be exactly where our tessitura, that's the space of our voice. So it's very difficult because sometimes a mezzo or an alto, or I was trained with an alto, but my teacher said I was studying with Castellani, Carla Castellani. She said, "I will make you a mezzo." That, sometimes teachers uh, try to make the exact voice of your the exact tessitura of your voice. It's, it's very difficult nowadays. Yeah, people just sing because they like the song. So,
Yeah, I think so because including for today's singer, I remember my experience. I don't want to talk bad, but once I watched Angela Gheorghiu singing Tosca back in 2016 at the Covent Garden, and actually I was really disappointed because I think the role was too heavy for her voice. Yeah, her voice was, in my opinion, very light, and it couldn't reach the audience who sat at the very back of the theater. Yeah, and the role of Tosca was very demanding, as Tebaldi has said. Tosca is very demanding, very dramatic, and even Tebaldi chose not to sing Norma, because Norma was, I suppose, maybe a bit challenging too, in terms of how you would build the coloratura and the bel canto approach, and we will discuss it later. What do you think? Maybe you have an opinion.
Yeah, like Madam Katrina said, we should know our our vocal and our voice, and choose the right repertoire for us, because yeah, vocal is the instrument is our body, yeah, our body, and it's unique for every person, every singer. Yeah.
I think it's important, yeah, especially for young singers nowadays, because sometimes we need to know, in today's world, we need to know our forte, you know, and in which we should choose the right repertoire and the right aria, the right opera to sing, I think. Yeah, not just, oh, I love Tosca, I want to sing Tosca, whatever my voice type. It cannot be like that, I think, because at the end your voice will be ruined. What do you think? Is it right? Yeah, in the long term, I think. Okay. Yeah, that's why this Alan Blythe says that due to Tebaldi's successors in the Fach is the type, the voice type, the tessitura, I think, the Fach, not having the right vocal equipment for her parts. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then maybe we can next. Okay, we are going to watch a clip from two of Verdi's opera, which were one of Tebaldi's specialization. Okay. It's uh, extraordinary. What do you think? Yeah, it's very difficult to sing.
Yeah, high notes pianissimo and not much vibrato there.
Maybe how can it be? I mean, with you you can sing in such an intensity. Of course, it's in the opera house, and everybody should be able to listen to Renata Tebaldi singing pianissimo in the high note, but she did it very stable. What do you think? What- what's the secret of how I can do that? One can do that.
First of all is the technique, and then second is the experience, and auditions,
The
intelligence.
intelligence.
Yeah, intelligence.
Yeah, and there was a time when she sang Messa di Voce. Messa di Voce is like a crescendo. like I cannot I cannot give an example from pianissimo and then crescendo to forte. Is it difficult to sing messa di forte? What?
You have to train. It is the technique, and then you have to control your breath, your breathing,
Your breath. Yeah. Okay.
diaphragm.
And for placement, yeah, like you said, stable, yeah, it's stable, yeah.
The stable placement, because in the opera house, if you sing pianissimo, you cannot just sing like a whispering or something. You must have a your voice must have a body, I think, yeah, and intensity, so the audience who sit at the very back of the opera house can hear you. Okay. Yeah, magnificent technique, including remarkable breath control with an outstanding legato, subtlety of musical phrasing, and vocal characterization. Yeah, I think it's very hard to find, especially in today's context. What do you think? I mean, Renata Tebaldi signifies the golden voices of the 20th century, the golden voices in the 1950s, 1960s, when you were experiencing those times in Italy.
I remember that the time I was there, the best of Madame Butterfly interpretation was Toti Del Monte. I was at her master class that time, and she is the best for interpretation of Madame Butterfly because the she was also very small, and when I was there, she still gave master classes in the mountain, and all the foreigners come to study with her. Um, she has master class in our conservatory in that time, and very small, but that's why Madame Butterfly is a Japanese woman, so and but her voice is just the very near interpretation what which Puccini wants. Yeah, I think, and I think one more. Why is La Scala is so great, and everybody is willing to sing at La Scala, and La Scala is the finale for singers. Yeah. I was that time I was there. I saw Corelli and Callas doing the Medea, and that time Corelli was his voice was yeah, and you know the newspapers sono arrabbiato, and then but I remember that the acoustic of La Scala is the best. I because once La Scala was bombed by the American, and then was built, new built, and then Toscanini say is perfecto. So they have the best architect for acoustic. So, and then yeah, what we elect is the building for acoustic, and for singers it's very difficult. And now we have an auditorium in Bandung, the Unpar, and they said that the acoustic is almost perfect. So for singers, if the acoustic is very best, it's very difficult because you cannot hear your own voice. So, and usually if you sing in the bathroom,
of the echo.
Yeah, you can hear your echo, but in the great Scala, I mean the room is the best acoustic. You cannot hear your own voice. So sometimes the choir has to be very, don't push because they cannot hear their own voice. You know.
And you cannot cheat the
Yeah.
audience.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It's very interesting. You watched Maria Callas in, I believe in 1962 when
Yes.
she performed Medea.
I saw Maria Callas, I saw Onassis, I saw Grace Kelly.
Yeah. Yeah. The Callas groups, right? The
Yes.
Callas group is.
Yes.
Okay. And also Birgit Nilsson in Turandot.
Yes, Brigitte Nielsen was in Turandot. I saw as Mirala Freni as Liu.
Ah, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's very difficult to, because especially for young generations today, the they are not really exposed to the old way of singing. Yeah, I mean those golden voices. Yeah, I think.
But I was, what I still remember, why Callas is so great. You know, I saw in Medea, the first time she just come, not not singing yet, just like this. Your heart is, you know, like.
Oh,
thump.
it's like,
She is the best.
yeah.
I sing the.
It's a thrilling
Yeah,
experience.
yes, it's the performance. Very wonderful. Yeah, I don't know how to express because everybody was, you know, waiting for her experience. She was dressed in gold, and then she just stepped like that, and people just feel already she is not singing yet. That's I sing the best of Callas is that.
Nice. Even before she sings on stage, you can immediately felt her presence,
Yes.
right? Well, that's the magic of live performance, I think. Yeah, especially for people like Maria Callas, Renata Tebaldi. Okay, maybe we can continue to the next. Okay, this is the clip of Tebaldi singing La Bohème. Yeah. Okay. It was a clip from the La Boheme. La Boheme is a we could clearly see the expressive singing and also the impeccable legato. What do you think? And La Boheme, Puccini's La Boheme, is one of the example of the verismo opera. So now we are moving to the operatic singing approach, bel canto versus verismo. So bel canto refers to actually bel canto is the foundation of any operatic singing, but during the 19th century, bel canto was um, bel canto was represent a tradition of composers like Bellini, Donizetti, Rossini, with operas such as La Norma, I Puritani, and so on. And the theme of the bel canto operas, usually they tell about the mythology, like La Norma, and then the monarchy, the aristocracy, like I Puritani, or the history. Meanwhile, the Verismo movement actually is instigated at the end of the 19th century and at the beginning of the 20th century. It was started by a literary movement called the Realism in Literary Movement with Emile Zola and his novel Germinal, telling the stories, the daily life of the oppressed people, like the miners, the fishermen, the kaum buruh. Yeah, so they departs from the daily experiences of the oppressed people. And in opera, the theme was brought firstly by Pietro Mascagni in Cavalleria Rusticana, and I Pagliacci by Ruggero Leoncavallo, the clowns. Meanwhile, the Cavalleria Rusticana tells the story about the rustic chivalry, about the daily life of the people in Sicilia, in Sicily. Two different themes, two different approach. In bel canto approach, the singers and the arias and the operas usually heavily imbued by ornamentation, and one has to create a beautiful melodies. Like if you're a pianist, if you're playing, it's like if you are playing Chopin. Yeah, you have to create a beautiful phrase, beautiful melodies, and then sometimes with a fioritura, with a florid passage, and so on. Meanwhile, in very small approach, it's much more declamatory, a no nonsense. So you can just sing, you can just speak, and yeah, or even shout. Maybe I can give an example in the next slide. This is the first one, is bel canto, also sang by Tebaldi. Tebaldi, she sang Norma only for studio recording, not in live performance.
solamente che t'avrò fra le mie braccia. Vedi, ti vinco! Cristo te, per pietà! Che cosa sto male? Devo dargli! Alla bottiglia, vedo, ma mi chiedo me! Cristo te, me lo chiedo per oh, perché sei venuta la partita?
An electrifying performance, and even Tebaldi could sing. I think she could and sing any roles. Maybe the next slide. Yeah. So what do you think? What is the very small approach in the operatic singing that we usually listen to Renata Tebaldi? Because she specialized in those very small repertoires. For example, almost all of the Puccini's operas, and also Umberto Giordano, Andrea Chenier, uh, Francesco Cilea, Adriana Lecouvreur, and Catalani, Lavalli. Yeah. What do you think? Is there any particular approach in singing the very small roles? Because it seems so heavy compared to the bel canto. Bel canto is also heavy, I believe, and also difficult to sing because you have to really sustain and really control your breath, your diaphragm. Maybe you can explain, one of you.
I think but Anning and I already discussed this. So bel canto, we could to anything. So bel
Basic.
canto is the old tradition of this Italian art form on how to sing beautifully in a stage of opera, or and some in the time after they found bel canto, even like in a leader, they still use some of the perspective of bel canto to the singing. And I think what is very small could be captured by how a woman can shout beautifully, and can bring those dramatic point, and those are very smooth. Those shouts, those expressions. That's kind of like the symbol of what we've been talking here, where a human can bring a dramatic point to the highest in this art form, and shout is just as beautiful as singing at this point.
Yeah.
So yeah.
The art of shout. Yeah, not like we shout in
Not like you
yeah.
shout to our kids or to our friend, but yeah, I think by this it means that like Mbak Aning and Madame Katarina already told us that in singing opera is kind of like combination of mind, mental, and your physicality. So how mature you are with your technique, how mature you are with your charisma, how mature you are with your mind would bring you to those levels. I think that's kind of like the formula.
Yes, right.
How about Tante?
Yeah, I think it's really important. Of course, bel canto is the foundation of any operatic singing. It's the technique that can produce a projection of sound through your your bodily cavity, that it can function as a resonance space, right? And it's also inevitable to in very small approach, because as we listened before, Tebaldi was shouting, and yeah, you cannot make a shouting sound uh, without bel canto technique. It was just a ugly shout. Can you give an example for? Uh,
Oh, there is this coach when I were in Urbania. So in Urbania, it's a very small village, and uh, the coach got the place like where there was windows and everything, and he said this once: if you uh, can bring good resonance and don't make people from the neighborhood come outside, that's good singing.
okay,
But if you bring them out, so that shout an ugly shout.
just like playing a violin.
Yeah.
If it's out of tune, then people will come to you.
Yeah. So I think you have to to sing in Italian just to prove that.
Yeah, I think, and also, especially for us Indonesian, it is very difficult to sing um, Italian as Italian usually do, because the way we speak is different from Italy. I don't know. What do you think? The placement of the voice.
Ya, in Indonesia, bahasa Indonesia, kita biasanya semuanya low, low, and the end of the phrase down, not down, here, and the singing we have to it is different, and our language is here to talk, not ya saya nggak mungkin ya saya bicara begini dengan ya bukan bahasa Indonesia ini aneh gitu.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and yeah, I remember a phrase, let's say, from Macbeth. Paticino uscito dalle veggenti stesse che predissero un certo al capomio. It's Indonesian, but Maria Callas can sing Paticino uscito dalle veggenti stesse che predissero un certo, with the cavity of the with the resonance in her head resonance. What is the difference between the resonance and then the chest resonance? Well, what resonance and the middle? So the head and the middle, and then the chest resonance. What is the difference
I think
between?
easily we can use a theory of acoustic where the sounds has the most of it mass. So if you say head register, let's say, so the mass of the sounds kind of like culminated around
Risonanza di maschera.
yes around your forehead, or even there is in most of singing school there is like a picture of map of resonance that it's begin from top of your head and then going down to the model register, or the register where it's very very similar to the way we talk, and then it going down again where the mass of the sound kind of like culminated around your chest. So that's of like by using acoustic theory, if you want to explain it.
Yeah, and the specialty of Tebaldi, she could use all of those range. She could sing in all of those ranges without changing her tone color in her voice. Callas did that, because if you sing to Maria Callas singing at the upper register and the low register, her voice sounded different. Yeah, her voice would sound different. But Renata Tebaldi is not. She sang uh, almost flawlessly from the from the top to bottom. Between the what you call it, and I heard also a debate between the forte di petto, the sound, the chest sound, and the risonanza di maschera. Should the forte di petto was sung with the forte di risonanza di maschera? What do you think?
Maybe from bel canto technique, if we sing, we used all the resonance, head and middle and chest, and how much we use the resonance depend on how high the notes. Maybe like that, Farel.
Yeah, I agree. And maybe I think to examine how voice works, there should be a video stroboscopy on how vocal fold works. So, but actually, if you want to make it simple, to 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 enable a singer sing in such a manner, they need to lessen the tension. So less tension, better coordination of the muscles around the larynx will enable you to reach from top to bottom easily. That's why most of early singing warming up scale would be a very, very fast scale. Just to introduce the vocal fold to how to sing E, not to sing push, like push. Tante Catherine's said to me.
Not pushing, not
Yeah.
pushing the phone. Why don't we try? Okay, now we are going to display some of the repertoires that Tebaldi used to sing. The first one is La Gioconda by Amilcare Ponchielli. Amilcare Ponchielli was so many people said that he was the bridge between Verdian tradition to the Verismo tradition with La Gioconda. So La Gioconda is the name of the opera, and Renata Tebaldi firstly sang La Gioconda in the Metropolitan Opera late in her career in the 1960s. And then the second one we are going to sing, of course, Renata Tebaldi's repertoire from Puccini, Tosca and La Bohème. So La Gioconda tells the story of La Ceca. So Ibu Caterina Leimena, Madame Caterina Leimena will sing an aria, Voce di Donna o d'Angelo. Is this a voice of a woman or an angel? And then Tosca, the story of Tosca is also all about jealousy. So Tosca, actually, there is a couple, Cavaradossi, a painter, and Tosca, a singer. But amidst their relationship, there's Il Barone Scarpia, Don Scarpia, the evil baron who tried to seduce Tosca by kidnapping Cavaradossi. And then La Bohème tells the story about a group of Bohemian artists in Paris, and they live at the attic and they live in poverty, but they try to survive. Yeah, and there's also between the main character, between Rodolfo and Mimi. Okay. Okay, want to try? Or you want to take some vocalize before?
Vorrei da me non parta sì, da me non parta sì, senza un pietoso no, no, ma te questo rosario che li preghiere aduna io te lo porgo accetta ti porgo sulla tua testa fesi lì la mia benedizione sulla tua testa feci la mia benedizione.
Sorry. Floria, l'ardente amante mia. E te, beltà degnota, cinta di chiome bionde, azzurro all'occhio, tosca l'occhio nero, l'arte nel suo mistero, le diverse bellezze insiem confonde, ma non ritar costei il mio solo pensiero, al mio sol pensier sei tu. Sei tu.
e sincero la mia preghiera ai santi tabernacoli salì, sempre con fede sincera. Vieni, vieni all'altar, nell'ora del dolore, perché, Signore, perché venne rimuneri così. Tieni gioielli della Madonna al manto e diedi il canto agli astri al ciel che ne ridian più belli nell'ora del dolore. Perché, Signore, perché me ne rimuovere così.
Next one is going to be two arias and
One duet.
from La Bohème.
La Bohème.
First one is Que Gelida Manina. Que Gelida Manina is how
So-
cold is your tiny little hand.
Yes.
Che gelida manina, se la lasci riscaldar, cercar che giova, al buio non si trova. Ma per fortuna è una notte di luna, e qui la luna l'abbiamo vicina. Aspetti, signorina, le dirò con due parole chi son e che faccio come vivo. Vuole chi son? Chi son? Sono un poeta. Che cosa faccio? Scrivo e come vivo, vivo. In povertà mia lieta, scialo da gran Signore, rimedini d'amore, per sogni e per chimere, e per castelli in aria. L'animo milionaria. Taler del gioielli, due ladri gli occhi belli. Entrar con voi pur ora e i bei sogni usati e i bei sogni miei tosto siri e qua ma il furto non m'accora poiché va presso stanza la speranza che mi conoscete, parlate voi, ne parlate chi siete. Vi piaccia dir.
Sì, mi chiamano Mimmi, ma il mio nome Lucia. La storia mia è breve, a te lo asseta, ricamo in casa e fuori. Son tranquilla e lieta ed è mio sfago far gigli e rosi. Mi piacciono quelle cose che han sì dolce Maria che parlano d'amor e che parlano di sogni e di chimere, quelle cose che han nome poesia. Le m'intende?
Sì.
Mi chiamano Mimmi e perché non so. Sola mi fa il pranzo da me stessa, non vado sempre a messa, ma prego assai il Signor. Vivo sola, soletta, là in una bianca cameretta, guardo sui tetti e in cielo. Ma quando vien lo cielo, il primo sole mio, il primo bacio della in un vaso una rosa, foglia a foglia la spia, così gentil il profumo fior. Ma i fior ch'io faccio ai miei, i fior ch'io faccio ai miei non hanno odore. Altro di me non lei saprei narrare, sono la sua vicina che la vien fuori d'ora importunare.
Oh, suave fanciulla, o dolce viso di mite circonfusa da lunar, intera viso il sogno ve vorrei sempre sognar. Le dolcezze estreme
Comandi amore,
fremo nell'anima,
come
dolcezze estreme, fremo dolcezze estreme, nel bacio trema ogni amor.
per pietà,
Se mia,
aspettano gli amici,
già mi mandi via.
vorrei dir, ma non oso.
Di
Se venissi con voi,
Mimì, sarebbe così dolce restar qui, c'è freddo fuori.
vi starò vicino.
E al ritorno?
Curioso,
Dammi il braccio, mia piccina.
obbedisco, signore.
Ma mi di
Io t'amo.
amor,
Quite difficult to find trio.
Oh ya.
Lebih dekat.
Indonesia tanah air beta, pusaka abadi nan jaya. Indonesia sejak dulu tetap dipuja-puja bangsa.
Di sana tempat lahir beta, dibuai dibesarkan bunda, tempat berlindung di hari tua, sampai akhir menutup mata. Sungguh indah tanah air beta, tiada bandingnya di dunia. Karya indah Tuhan Maha Kuasa bagi bangsa yang memujanya. Indonesia hidup pertiwi, kau ku puja, kau ku kasihi, tenaga ku bahkan pun jiwaku kepadamu rela ku beri. Tenaga ku bahkan pun jiwaku kepadamu rela ku beri.
Oh nyanyi lagi.
Thank you so much.
Prego.
Thank you, Madam Serena. Thank you for your performance, extraordinary, marvelous. Thank you, for your presence here, for your collaboration, and we are very happy to start our event finally in presence. And we have some project with also Aditya about bel canto, about opera, music during this year and the next year, we hope, and the fingers crossed. Thank you so much, everybody. And now for picture. Oh, okay.
Photo session
All
first.
together. Thank you.
Silahkan kalau ada teman-teman yang ambil foto bisa maju ke depan.